All right, guys, so we started looking at the seagrass ecosystem. So we already have seen the presentation, which is down here. I told you guys that this weekend, you guys will be doing mangrove. And I want to emphasize and reiterate that if I can't catch any one of you plagiarizing from any website, you will get a 0 for the course, for the test, and you will be getting a 0 if you do it again. So please, you know that cheating is not something that you should be doing, right? So have that in mind. And I will not have feelings from anyone that is plagiarizing, because you already should know that whenever you find something, you read it and you make it in your own. I was telling the class from waste management that if you think that I'm a fool, I am not. Not because I'm a fool, I'm where I am, right? And from the beginning, I know how you write. So it's very different when you write on your own and then you bring in an essay that you have no spelling mistakes, no grammatical errors. I can foresee that that definitely is not yours. And then what I do, I have a program, I input 4 of the sentences and it gives me the site where you get it. So that is an
I
easy,
got that too, sir.
easy thing to find, right? So make sure, and I repeat, please do not try to fool me, because then you will learn your lesson, right? You have to be, like I told the students in waste management, if you're going to do it, learn to do it properly. There is nothing wrong with that is, and I think this is what makes me angry, is that we agreed that I wasn't going to put responders so that you didn't have to buy a computer that could allow it. And now, because I do that, you come and you slap my face, and then you go and you plagiarize and you put it in the quiz or the test. So I don't want you guys to be doing that, because if I find anyone else cheating, plagiarizing from any site, I will start to lock everything for quizzes and tests. Do I make myself clear? So because of one person, 2 persons, everybody will pay. I am sorry, and that's just the way it is, right? So I hope that you guys understand what is happening and be smart. Whatever you read, interpret it in your own way. Anyways, let's move on. So today we will be looking at the methodologies of how we go about surveying the seagrass or monitoring the seagrass. So that is very important for you to learn. So far we have seen for mangrove. Seagrass methodologies, you find it right here in the Moodle website. So you can always go there and you click seagrass and you can get the way how it is done. Again, we are using the MBRS, and I explained to you why we use MBRS, right? So pretty much this is what this methodology is the one that you will be using in when you go to do your bachelor's, right? So it's very important for you to learn how you do it. So again, you have for C1, C2, and C3 categories. From mangroves, I explained to you what it meant. It had to do with the frequency of how you go about doing the surveys. And the parameters that you collect are right here in this table, right? So typically, and we will jump right into the equipment, that is when you're doing biomass and community composition, you do it using cores, right? A core sample is let me show you so that you know what we're talking about, right? So a core sample. A core sample is something that is a cylindrical sphere that when you put it in the seagrass, when you pull it out, you pretty much take out like cubes of either rock or whatever you're coring. And in this case, when you're in the seagrass, you will be coring the bottom of the ocean, the bottom of the sea that will have mud and will have sediments that you will be collecting, right? So this pretty much the program has a circular, like a pipe that is long, and then at the top it has like a handle so that you can put your weight so that that thing bores into the mangrove, right? So that particular, did you understand what is a core sample? A core sampler? So a core samplers will normally take a cylindrical sample that you collect from whenever you core either rock or you core the ocean floor, right? So this is why the equipment that you need is the corer, which is a PVC pipe that is approximately 80 centimeters long and 15 to 20 centimeters in diameter. You could make it your own, or in the case of if you do thesis and you want to use that, you can get it from the NRM program, right? So what you do is you plunge approximately 5 to 7.5 centimeters in diameter and you will get more or less an amount, and that is used primarily to measure the standing crab biomass of the seagrass, to pretty much to get the amount of seagrass in that volume, right? So apart from that, you also can use these things. You use the fine mesh to sieve out the sand and the mud, and then you collect, and you later on go in the lab and then you count the species that you find within because that can be used to collect biomass as well as diversity of particularly of the benthic organisms in that size. Do you recall what is benthic, Dennis? Dennis, are you there?
Yes, sir.
What do you recall what is benthic organism?
Benthic
Yes, benthic, BENTH.
cellular organism associated with the bottom of the ocean.
That's right. So all these organisms that are in or on the bottom of the ocean, you can collect them and then you can have an idea of what species you find in the benthos or in the ocean floor, right? So pretty much that is how it's pretty simple. All you have to do is do your coring. Typically, what you do is you find randomly points in a measured distance, you core, and then you collect all the sargass, the seagrass, then you identify them, you weigh them, and then you can have an idea of how much biomass you have, right? After that, you can put it to dry, and then that will give you a sum of all the different cores that you have and give you an idea of how much you have. So apart from that, you can also use to collect the benthic organisms, right? And that you can use it for biodiversity. Any questions in that regards? I think this is the one that is the simplest to use, right? So another one is the measuring of the growth of not only, well, in this case, the focus more on the talas, the turtle grass, because it's the most abundant, but also you can do the other species. And this is what you will need: a quadrant. Again, at NRM, the program already has these quadrants that are made. A quadrant is a box with a particular measurement, which typically is 10 by 20 centimeters. And these are the equipment that you use. What you do is, the methodology is right here. What you can do is you have a transect of it typically goes from the coastal areas towards the deeper sea, and at every certain randomly chosen points, you can drop the quadrant, and then you snorkel or you dive, because sometimes when you do 150 centimeters, you won't be able surfacing and going down to count and check the leaves of the different species that you have, right? So, but if it's not deep enough, you can always snorkel, right? I know some of you don't know how to dive. That would be something that you might be interested in looking at and getting certification for, right? And again, I already told you guys that if you're planning to do your bachelor's, you need to know how to swim. So how many of you have checked about those swimming lessons? You are doing it, Keisha?
Yes, sir. I
Let me,
already I got in contact with the person you sent me the email to get in contact with, and they're doing it next semester.
so you see, so that's good, Keisha. Thank you very much for being the only one that doesn't know how to swim. And you see, this is what I tell you guys. They can serve you the plate, but it's up to you to put in your hand and grab what you want to eat. I told you about the swimming lessons. Only Keisha took what she wants to learn. I'm telling you, I'm warning you. If you're planning to do your bachelor's, you need to learn to swim because otherwise you won't be able to do the field work. You will have field methods, and you will have one of the modelers that you will need to be in the water. And if you can't swim, you will be in trouble. So, Keisha, can you tell us more about what they tell you about the swimming lessons for next week? I mean, next semester?
All right, sir. Right now, look it up my email.
Don't worry. Try find it because that's very good information, especially for those that don't know how to swim. If you know how to swim, you can clear. You don't have to worry about anything.
Georgia got a river right there across the street.
Which river he lives in, Belize City?
No, but when he go visit family, that's what. What do you think he go do?
I don't know.
Swim.
All right, sir. It's the class is 16 hours of practice over over a course of several days or weeks. It can be audited, meaning that you already know how to swim or you have swimming experience, or you can be taken for credits, which mean that you don't know how to swim. The registered course title is M Bio 2451 Basic Water Skills, and it will be offered in the January semester.
And the price,
So, it never gives me the price.
or they don't get the price. And where are the lessons given?
So she never specified that either. She said that that's still something that they work on though, and that she'll send me more information once they sort it out.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, like I told you guys, starting as of October, I think if we go back to do whatever activities, you will have to present your your vaccine card or your negative analysis, right? So that is very important that if you haven't gotten vaccinated, I recommend that you get vaccinated so you remove that problem from your head because well, this thing is getting worse. I saw it yesterday again, 300 and like it looks like every day 300 and more people are getting um, infected with the virus, and you have more people dying because of that thing, right? So 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 these are the things that you need to know. And again, like I said, it's up to you if you want to grab the the food that is in the bowl. Like how I was explaining to the waste management class, I can only provide 50%, and that is doing my best. And I don't think anybody can do 100%, right? So the rest depends on you. All right, Chinese. So how are you doing? Have you recovered
Sir,
from that? There's nothing to be ashamed of, Chinese. I mean, especially people at front line like you. But everything is fine. Chinese, you're muted.
sorry, but are we gonna, sir?
Sorry?
I started go there.
Excellent.
I'm fine.
I like to hear that. So so yeah, again, I'm telling you guys that this thing, I mean, anybody can get infected. I mean, it's not only because, especially people that are in the front line, right? It's more likely that they get infected because they have more contact with people, and the more contact you have with people, the more the risk, right? It's like in the case of us that we are locked down, it's not likely that we get it, but again, you never know with these kind of diseases, we don't know, right? And the only thing is, we all we can do is protect ourselves, wear our masks, sanitize, etc. Right? So so there you go. So those of you that will be doing your bachelor's, make sure that you take your swimming classes and learn how to swim, because that's very important, especially when you do the field methods and the modulars, right? And again, all these things we were supposed to have done for the field trip, but because of the situation that we have, we can't do it. I can only show you how it is done, right? And from videos. So talking about videos, let's look at how the course sum are done. So this is an example of how it is done. It is the same concept, but in the seagrass, you don't have a core or a drill that big, right? So because you don't have to, it's only like 1 foot that if you can able to push that thing 1 foot, then you go 1 foot, but typically it's short. So let's pay attention of how it's
Hello,
done.
I'm Professor Kitch, and welcome to my series of geotechnical engineering webcasts. This webcast is an introduction to drilling and sampling. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of common drilling and sampling techniques. It's intended to supplement presentations using photographs or videos of drilling and sampling. While photos and videos of drilling and sampling operations can show you the equipment being used, they can't show you what's going on below ground. This presentation uses animations of drilling and sampling operations to demonstrate what...
So did you hear what he said? You don't know what is at the bottom until when you take out the sample. The same thing happens when you're doing it in the seagrass, right? You bore, yes, you bore just like this much, the most, because if you would have had the experience, you will push, but there's only a certain distance that you can go. But this will be, this like 6-7 centimeters will be enough to find stuff, organisms in the mud, right?
Sir, that's why sometimes oils will soften.
Yes, but then that's a different story, because they're drilling up, they're drilling thousands of meters into the earth, right?
At the end of this video, I'll provide some links to other videos that show actual drilling and sampling. The 4 most common drilling techniques: solid sim augering with the open hole method, hollow sim augering method.
That does not apply to us because we're not drilling at that depth, right? So let's just jump all of that because we are not doing that. So these are referred to as drill rigs, and sometimes these can drill deep enough into the earth, right? So let's see how it's used.
The process of drilling is similar regardless of the type of drill rig used. First, we position the rig over the location where we wish to drill.
So just pretend that truck is you with your core, right?
Then we erect the drilling boom or mast and make sure it's vertical.
So this would be the core sampler, right?
A drill head mounted on the boom is the mechanism used to...
Your core sampler does not have a drill head. The drill head is something that is spinning, trying to break into the rock and everything that is there. But drill heads you don't have. Only the drill power that you have on your arms, right?
Perform the drilling and sampling operation. The drill head provides 2 motions to aid in drilling. A torque can be applied to rotate the bit, and a vertical thrust can be applied to raise and lower drill bits.
So those have rotating so that it can, grind it. In your case, you do that manually, because when you stick it, it won't just go in, because it's a pipe that you're trying to put in. So the pipe is shaped like in a V shape so that it can go, but it will get, you won't even be able to put it 1 centimeters. So the 1 centimeters you have to move it, twist it with your arm. And this is what this thing does artificially, right? Mechanically, sorry. So you do it manually. You do it with your hands. So there is no drill head and there is no this, because everything is being done with the strength of your arms and by moving it around to dig into the sand and the mud.
And other equipment. There are many different drilling and sampling techniques we can use to investigate the subsurface conditions. One of the simplest is the open hole method using solid stem continuous flight augers. The flights on a continuous flight auger run the full length of the auger. At the tip of the auger is a cutting bit. The inset photo shows 2 different diameter solid stem augers with 2 different types of cutting bits. The auger is rotated and pushed into the ground by the drill head. The bit at the tip of the auger loosens the soil at the bottom of the hole, and the flights carry the cuttings to the ground surface. An engineer or geologist can estimate when new soil layers are encountered by observing the changes in the cuttings as they're brought to the surface. These cuttings can be collected as bulk samples. However, they are low quality samples because they're completely disturbed by the cutting process, and because soil from the upper layers can contaminate soil from the lower layers as the cuttings are carried up the auger flights. When the boring reaches a depth where a higher quality sample is desired, the auger is removed from the hole to make room for the sample.
So all of that is not interesting. What is interesting is that you put the strength and you rotate it so that it digs, and when you remove it, and sometimes it's like hard, it gets because of the suction that creates when you're pushing. Sometimes three of you are battling with that thing to remove it. When you finally are able to remove it, you bring in the core, as you will see the sample, right? As you will see right now. Are you guys understanding what you're supposed to do with the core sampler?
Sampling equipment. In this method, the borehole must be able to stand open without support, which is why we call it the open hole method. When we wish to take a sample, we replace the auger bit with a sampling tool or sampler.
So if you notice, this has been emptied because when you start to boring, this thing starts to push and fill up with what you're boring in. So that is why it's called a core sampler, because it bores in, and then when you take it, you remove it out, you bring in that space, because it's a hollow PVC pipe that you're putting it. So when you take it out, you bring in the sample that you require. And then that sample, where is it? Let me see if we can have an example of that. So if you notice, this is hollow. So as it drills, it is taking sample of the whatever is down here, right? So I want you guys to see how, when it comes up, how it looks. But it looks like they don't have it in this diagram, right? But nevertheless, we can always find. So here you can see that this is how they come up, right? Look.
That one, it's not too far from the Red Creek fault system.
Sometimes they come broken up, but sometimes they come up like these, like this particular one. Look. So they can come up quite where the hell is it?
5 4
See?
foot.
So they can come up. This is what you take out when you're coring on the ground. Is that clear, guys? So it's pretty simple, this methodology, right? So what you do is that you take a dimension. Normally it's a 10 by 10, and then you at randomly selected points. How you can do that is by doing it in blocks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like for instance, let me show you on paint. So for instance, let's say this is the area, right? So what you do is you do an area. Let's say that this is 10 by 10, right? Typically it's 10 by 10. So this should be the same length as that one. So let me do it a little bit so that it is more realistic, right? So it's 10 by 10, it should be more or less the same length, right? It will be like here, 10 by 10. And what you can do is you divide, you can divide the area, let's say 1 by 1. So you will have, if you do 1 by 1, you will have 10 of these on each side, right? Are you guys following? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Are you guys understanding? Are you following, Shanice? So you can do
Yes,
it like
sir.
1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then on a paper, you take out. So you take out 5 chords, right? So you do it, you're doing it at random. So what you do, let's say, these are the 5 ones that were selected, right? So how do you get the 5 samples that you will be using? Again, Georgie?
Use a sampling for sampling.
No, you're not using the core sampling right now. What you're doing is, before you use the core sampling, you're choosing where you will be doing your
plot.
Yes, your plot. So here you label 1 to 10, 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, up to 20, right? So you have 10 on one side, 10 on one side. Are you guys following? So on you, to do it at randomly, you put 1, 2, 3 on a piece of paper, you run fill it, you take out 5 if you're doing 5 chords, or you could do 6, 7, it depends on your decision, right? So once you take out, you do the raffle and you take out the numbers, you end up with these. Let's say you pick up, you end up, after the raffle, you end up with these numbers. So number 1 came out, number 1, 2, 3, number 4 came out. Here it will be 16 came out, and number 6 came out, and then 20 came out, right? So how do we get 1, 4, 6, 16, and 20? Mark, Anthony? Mark?
Sir.
Why am I getting all these numbers here?
Yeah, I have good, sir. Which one?
Is not paying attention. Keisha?
Sir, like randomly, just like you said, like you want roughly off and off.
Yes, that's right. Because we will have from 1 to 10, 11 to 20, right? So this is for, we get that from the 10 by 10 transect quadrant that we do. And then we divided each of these into a 5 by 1, right? And we get it. So that is how we get the number. So you bring your core, the core is something wrong, you push it in, you take a sample, you put it in your plastic bag, you rinse it good, and then you mark it with typically what we use here are the Ziplocs that are not wet. You put your sample, and or you can put it in a plastic container, you put it, and then you take it to the lab for you to do your sorting out of the seagrass and of the organisms that you find in it. And that is how you do the core sampling. Pretty much simple and straightforward. Any questions? So again, for what do you use the core sample? I said to do for biomass, and also you can check out the species identification. You can look at how the rhizomes are and the health of seagrass that you have in that area. Apart from that, you can also do biodiversity of benthic organisms in this seagrass ecosystem. All right, so that is with the first methodology, right? This other one, the measurement of the growth of the Thalasseum testidium, this is a different methodology. So let's look at where is Moodle? So Moodle, you have this, you can do the seagrass transect training. This is similar to what we do. It's not the same thing, but it's similar, and I will be guiding you as to what we do. So let's try to jump and go directly to and then the purpose of, you can watch it completely afterwards. I will just highlight what I want you guys to learn, okay?
Thank you for tuning into the Tampa Bay Estuary Program Seagrass Transect Training Protocol video. The purpose of this exercise is to teach our partners and other interested parties about seagrass monitoring methods that have been used in Tampa Bay since the 1990s. In this training, we will review, number one, what to bring and how to prepare for your field work. Two, how to identify common seagrass species found in Tampa Bay and assess their relative health and abundance. And three, where and when to conduct different types of assessments at fair.
So pretty much this methodology is to check the species ID, the health, and the abundance of the species that you find. You can also collect extra information like the epiphytes that are associated to seagrass. Again, what is referred to as epiphyte?
Sir, organism that they tend to live on the algae or the sea plants.
That's right. That's correct. So let's continue.
Various locations along fixed transects. In companion videos, we will also demonstrate this valuable information, data collected in the field using an online web portal, and describe
so here, what you do is you use a transect as well. You have a 100 meter or 150 meter transect, and at each point, you decide that again, depending on the methodology, on the scope of the research or the study that you're doing. Typically, you start from point 1, which is at 0, and then you go every 5, every 10, depends on you. So you have your transect, and then you decide how many of the quadrants you will be doing. You remember that when it started, the quadrant are these things. So this thing is already measured and it has the points, and you can pretty much check the percentage of coral cover that you not coral cover, seagrass cover that you have in an area. So pretty much that is what you do to see which species is more abundant, and what epiphytes you find in the transect, right?
Information collect.
So you take and here is a complete view of the transect, and within the transect you have sections that you can pretty much use as well for other things, right? And typically these pipes have holes so that they can sink, otherwise it will float and you won't be able to use it, right? So once you start, you take your transect, you go from the coastal area into the sea.
By our local partners to inform the management of Tampa Bay. This training is intended to help ensure that the data collected by multiple to 2 decades
So these are the materials that you typically use for the transect method.
When you head out into the field, you'll need to familiarize or refamiliarize yourself with the transects you will be visiting. Look at the last couple of years' worth of transect data, recent SwiftMud maps of the area, and the transect description in the training and field manual appendix to learn more about what has happened to the transect and seagrass beds you will be visiting. You can learn about previous transect data on the Seagrass monitoring webpage, and SwiftMud seagrass data is also available online. Depending on whether you'll be visiting the transects by land or boat, You will need to plan for tides as well, using the NOAA Tide Prediction website.
Let's just jump that.
Extremely important. There is a fairly extensive list of equipment to bring to ensure that the day goes as smoothly as possible.
This one here is a safety disc, and you use it for visibility, turbidity, etc., right?
This includes items such as data sheets.
The data sheet needs to be waterproof, because if you take regular paper, if it gets wet, it messes up your information.
Clipboards, phone or tablet or GPS unit, measuring tape, meter square and small quadrats, rulers, mask, weight belt, and Secchi disc. A suggested list is available online or upon request.
So typically, this is what you take as also when you go to do these surveys, you have to ensure that if you're as white like me, you have to have sunblock. Otherwise, when you come back, you return like lobster or worse. And sometimes the burns can be so harsh, especially if there is no cloud, and you can get really sunburned. You also make sure that you dress appropriately. You won't want to go do this survey using jeans or a pretty dress, because that is not suited for the environment. So you have to go with swimming clothes, right?
Sir, when we did this, well, I did this in my previous degree, and they recommend that when we use like rash guards, like like what the surfers use.
Yes. So, but I typically recommend something that is loose and you can feel comfortable, because sometimes it can get really hot, and whenever you use the diving suits, it can get hot, very hot, especially if there is no clouds. And the best thing is to dress up light and do the data collection, right? Apart from that, you should have enough water, because when you're in the sea, typically, especially if you're in the sea, you tend to get dehydrated, because you will be losing. If you notice, you pee more when you're in seawater than in fresh water. So you have to be drinking a lot of water. So never ever go to the seagrass, to the corals, and to the mangroves without at least 1 liter of water, because sometimes you can end up drinking more than that. Sometimes when we go and we know we're going to be working for quite some time, what we do is we just take a 5-gallon container and we're good to go, right? So, and especially if you're working long hours, you should also have lunch and snacks for when you come out, as well as ice and water, right? Those are very important for when you go out to do any survey in the marine environment. So pretty much these are all the equipment that you need when you do the transect survey, right?
Make sure that electronics are charged and in working order, as well as waterproof to the greatest extent possible. I definitely learned this the hard way. Also, please note that this list and discussion doesn't include any boat preparation that your organization requires. Five species of seagrass regularly occur in Tampa Bay, and you'll need to be able to identify which of these species are present at the sites you are monitoring. Shoalgrass, Heliduli wrightii, is the most common species in the Tampa Bay region. It has narrow, thin, and flat leaves that can grow to about 30 centimeters or 1 foot. The leaves grow from nodes on the rhizomes and have notched blade tips. This helps differentiate Heliduli and Rupia. Turtlegrass, Thalassia testudinum, is dominant in lower Tampa Bay and common in old Tampa Bay and middle Tampa Bay. Its flat leaves are the widest of any found in Tampa Bay and can grow to a length of more than 50 centimeters, nearly 2 feet. Manatee grass, Syringodium filiforme, is found in all subregions except Hillsborough Bay, and its leaves are cylindrical and can grow to over 60 centimeters in length, about 2 feet. If you're a pasta person, maybe you can relate to this analogy. Heliduli is fine like angel hair, Syringodium is round like bucatini or spaghetti, and Thalassia is wide and flat like fettuccine or pappardelle. Widgeon grass, Ruby meridema, is fairly rare in Tampa Bay.
So this we don't have here in Belize, right? So let's jump that. Stargrass, that we have here in Belize.
Stargrass, Halophila angomanii, is also rarely seen in Tampa Bay, but is fairly easy to identify. As the name suggests, a group of up to 8.
So where do we find the stargrass? Do we find it anywhere here in Belize? No, particularly in one area, right?
Short leaves grow from a central base and looks like a little star. The leaves are generally less than 3 centimeters, about 1 inch long. There are also several types of attached and drift algae that regularly occur in the seagrass beds, such as Caulerpa, a highly variable drift algae, and ulva, or sea lettuce. Record these separately when they are observed.
All right, so far we saw 2 of the species that we have here in Belize were not mentioned, right? So make note of that, and you know that those 3, because in the past there were only 3 that we had here in Belize. Now there are other 3 that we recently were found, and they're found particularly in the how you call it, the Placencia Peninsula, right? So this is how you do abundance. So pay attention.
We use the Blanc-Blanquet scale to describe canopy coverage for seagrasses, drift algae, and attached algae. The lower components of the scale include none, which as the name suggests, is used with.
So when you decide in your transect at which point you're going to do your survey, you drop the transect, I mean not the transect, the quadrant, and then as you can see here, there's no seagrass. Here there is only 1. Here you have less than 5%, and here you have sparse, right? Sometimes, especially where we go, when you drop it, the entire thing, so you have 100% cover, right? After that, what you have to do is identify what species you have and which one is the most abundant. Simple as that.
There is no seagrass in the quadrat. If you see a single blade of a species, it is described as solitary, also called 0.1. One way to visualize the higher categories is to try and mentally gather all of the seagrass of one species together in the square and think about how much space is occupied relative.
So again, sometimes you will find transects that will be a few less than 5%, less than 5 to 25%, and so forth, right? But typically in Belize, where the areas where we go, we have them at 100, between 70 to 100%. And 51 to 75. So I haven't been. You can find areas that you will have these, but it's not likely for the sites that we go, right?
To empty space. If more than 1 blade, but less than 1% of the quadrat is covered, still a very small amount, the term used is few or 0.5. If 1 to 5% of the quadrat has seagrass, the coverage is called 1. When 5 to 25% of the quadrat is covered, it is called 2. Where the coverage is between 25 and 50%, the coverage is called 3. If coverage is observed to be between 50 and 75%, it is called 4. And when coverage is greater than 75%, it is called 5. If there is an additional species of interest observed outside the quadrat that wouldn't otherwise be counted, use the designation 6.
All right, so that is in regards to abundance. Any questions? I think it's pretty much straightforward, right? Can any one of you give us a summary of what we saw for the abundance? Who wants to give it a shot? And it serves as practice for your test.
Sir, for the abundance, when you drop the, how is name?
The quadrant.
Quadrant, then you will see what percentage of seagrass is in there.
Percentage covered.
Covered, yeah. So it depends if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that.
That's correct. So you have less than 5%, and less, and so forth, right? Until when you
Yes.
reach the maximum, which is between 70 to 100%, right?
And in Belize, we find the 50 to 100 in those two, the last two ones.
Well,
Because they are more abundant. It depends on the area, right?
exactly, depends on the area. So where we typically go, the abundance is high. But I'm not saying that you won't find areas that might be less. Yes, you can, right? The only way you can figure it out is if you set up your transect and you start to do your survey, then you will realize, well, you have or you don't have.
Okay.
All right. You also collect information in regards to appearance, and while you're doing your abundance survey, you can also find about the epiphytes that you find in the ecosystem as well.
In addition to documenting the species present and their abundance in a quadrat, you'll need to describe the condition of the seagrass using clues such as color, damage, or decay. Appearance of seagrass is subjectively rated on a scale of 1 to 4. 1, with a rating of excellent, indicates healthy-looking blades, appropriate green coloration, and none to little blade damage. At the other end of the spectrum, a 4 would indicate unhealthy discoloration, yellow or brown, of the blades and highly damaged leaves. Epiphyte density also uses a subjective assessment of what is growing on the seagrass leaves. Completely clean leaves without any observed epiphytes are scored as 1. If less than about 1/3 of the leaf blade has epiphytes, the condition is described as 2 or light. A moderate epiphyte load, a score of 3, will have from 1/3 to 2/3 of the leaves covered. A heavy load is described as being greater than 2/3 of the leaves covered with some type of epiphyte. If you are able to identify the different epiphyte species, please do so. Information on epiphyte identification is available on request. For example, Corophorum, which exists mostly around Feather Sound, looks like little black tubes on seagrass blades, and Spirorbis, a polychaete worm, looks like small coiled tubes, similar to a nautilus shell.
Pretty much the epiphytes you can see it, and then you count and you try to identify. If you can't identify, then you take a sample, you take your containers, you put it there, take it to the lab, and then you try to identify using the keys that are available as well.
At each 100-meter mark, 100, 200 meters, and so on, you will also measure blade lengths and shoot density. The blade length is measured from where the shoot emerges from the sediment to the tip of the seagrass leaf blade. If possible, use completely intact blades, not ones that have been somehow shortened from their full length. For each seagrass species observed in the quadrat, you will pick 5 random seagrass blades from within the quadrat or as close as possible to.
So for this measuring of the blade, you don't measure all the blades that are there. Randomly, you choose 5 of each of the species that you find. All right?
Measure. You will use a small quadrat to assess short shoot density 3 times for each seagrass species at each 100-meter mark. If there is a relatively high density of seagrass, use the smaller 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter quadrat. If the seagrass density is relatively low, use the larger 25 by 25 centimeter quadrat for this effort. Drop the small quadrat into a nearby area or within the 1 meter square quadrat with the same species and relative densities observed within the 1 meter square. Count the number of stems coming out of the sediment, not individual leaves, within the smaller quadrat. Repeat this 2 more times for a total of 3 counts and do not overlap the counted areas. Don't forget to indicate in the web form, on your data sheet, or in your Trimble which quadrat size you used for each species.
So all these you do when you do the seagrass survey. So typically you have like 3 or 4 persons doing the survey so that you can move quickly, right? Because time is money.
In addition to your observations of the seagrass itself, you will also need to record information related to sediment type. We classify 5 different types of sediments during the seagrass survey. A classification of oyster is used when the substrate is predominantly oyster shell, and not if you only see a few oysters in the quadrat. Sand is usually grainier particles and feels relatively coarse in the hand. Think about sand from the beach. On the other hand, mud is very fine-grained and feels fairly slimy and therefore muddy to the touch. Muddy sand is, of course, somewhere between the two extremes. And shelly sand is granular with small shells scattered throughout. If you need to clarify your classification of sediment, please put notes into the comments section.
So that's pretty much straightforward, right? You also do for sediment, the type of sediment that you have.
Time and depth are also recorded at each 25-meter quadrat location. Depth is measured from the sediment to the top of the water. If waves are present, use your best judgment regarding an average location to measure the water-air interface. You can use either the ruler if relatively shallow, or the 1-meter quadrat in combination with the ruler to estimate the depth at each location along the transect. Finally, the Secchi disc measurement is only done once at the 2-meter contour nearest your seagrass bed, or the deepest edge if your seagrasses go beyond a depth of 2 meters. It is best conducted from a boat, kayak, or canoe. Ensure that the disc is tied to the rope, and sitting or standing above it, slowly feed the line with the disc down into the water until it almost disappears, but you can still see it. Record the depth as indicated on the feeder line.
So if you notice these black lines here on this rope, it already has a measurement. So when you put the Seagrass disc, it will sink until when you don't see it, then you stop, and that is the measurement of how turbid the water is. The deeper it goes, the less turbid it is. The less deep it goes, that means that the more turbid the water. And pretty much that is what
Secchi disc is on the bottom. Where each of these assessments.
So all these are extra, but typically that is what we survey when we're doing the transect method, right? All right, so apart from that, you also have another methodology, and typically these you use when you're doing a rapid ecological assessment or an environmental impact assessment. And this one is the Seagrass net methodology. So it's already there. So this seagrass is similar, but the only thing that is different that you don't use one transect, you use several transects, and I will show you right now how that is done, right? So here it gives you more information. So I would strongly recommend that you spend time and you read these 2 manuals, right? If you're planning to work in the marine environment as an NRM, you need to know these methodologies. So it gives you a description of things, etc., and materials that you need. But what I want to find is this one, right? Is there a way how I can put it the other way around? Can I rotate this diagram? People? Anyone knows if I can rotate this diagram? No?
No, sir.
Yes, see, here it is. Rotate clockwise. There you go. See, you can rotate it. Come on, guys, and you guys are supposed to be the technology generation. Come on, how come an old hag will come and show you something that you should know?
Well, at least you teach you something, sir.
You can't rotate, right? All right, so the difference between the seagrass net is that this is a more intense, but similar to what we have learned. That is only one transect or 7 transects, and that's it. This one, it has, you use 3 tips. You have to one in the shallow, one in the middle, and one in the deep areas, right? And you have, for all of them, you pick 12 quadrant along a 15-meter tip. So you, in this area, pretty much will be deep enough that you will need to dive and do the survey. Here, more or less, and here is the shallow, right? So if you notice, these lines are perpendicular to the coastline. It's not like the other ones that goes from the shallow to the deep, right? So you have 3 transects, and each of these transects is 50 meters. So you set up 3 transects. So for this one, you have more people working with the methodology. So you have transect A, transect B, transect C, right? And they should have minimum of a certain distance between each of these lines, right? So it would be preferable between 10 to 20 meters away from each other so that you can do the survey. All right. So once you start, you will pick 12 transects along the 50 meters and you select it at random, right? How do you do that? How do you select it at random? Well, you choose your points and you label it 1 to whatever number it gives you, and then you pick at which points you will be doing the survey. So each of these is a transect, a 1 by 1, and you do everything that you learned from the previous one. So you end up with 12 times 3, that's 36 points with the information that you had collected, that you learned how to collect for the line transit. And that is it. Any questions? So what is the importance of this methodology, guys?
Sir, to observe, to identify, to observe different biodiversity, abundance, etc.
Yes, that is, but the difference is that here you have far more information that if you only have 1 point from a transect or 2 points for a transect. All right, so this is a more in-depth methodology that you can get more information of that particular area. The other ones is only, you have a 150 meters or 1 meter, 100 meters transect, and you only collect 1 or 2, because as you go from the coast to the deeper ocean, you don't collect, because here for each transect you're collecting 12 quadrants compared to 2 or 3 the most.
This one gives a better representation.
Yes, that's why I said that you use it for when you're doing a rapid ecological assessment or an environmental impact assessment. Is that clear? All right, so we reached to the end of the so how do I bring it back now? Let me check something. See if it goes back. See, so it's not rotated. So I have to bring it counterclockwise. There you go. So you learned something new, Shayla.
Not only me, sir.
Everybody, no?
Yeah.
All right, so that is it. Do you guys have any questions?
Yes, sir. Yeah, call attendance.
Before you call attendance, let me remind you guys that you will be having mangrove quiz this weekend. I am warning you to not.
How you will open it, sir?
Sorry?
How many days? Same for the whole weekend, Friday to Sunday?
I am hesitant of doing that because I am already afraid that you guys will be tempted to copy again.
How we will do that?
In fact, I think we should do it on Thursday.
Huh? No, sir.
Why not? You guys should have been prepared for mangroves.
That one? Sure. Should that?
Anyways, I will think it over.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay, right now. Gloria.
Present.
Rosary.
Present.
Arely,
Present.
Arlene,
Present.
Sephora,
Present.
Dominic,
Present.
James Victor, Ariana,
Present.
Enrique,
Present.
Mark, Jaylee,
Present.
Alisa,
Present.
Brent, Maurice, Keisha,
Here.
Evelyn, okay. Shanice,
Here.
Zavan,
Here.
Dennis,
Present.
Adrian,
Present.
Denmark,
Present.
Kaylin,
Here.
Jalen,
Present.
Anthony,
Present.
Zelfa, Nahabe,
Present.
Camille,
Present.
Elvia,
Here.
Edwin,
Here.
Georgie, Zenobia, okay, Terrell,
Present.
Debbie,
Present.
answer.
All right. Thank you very much. I shall see you
Okay.
on Thursday, people. Take care.
Okay. If you decide about the test, let me know before so I could put it on the group chat, sir.
The test or
The quiz, I mean.
All right.
Sir, might not update the Seagrass PowerPoint.
Come
Because
again?
if you could update the Seagrass PowerPoint, because it's a old version, not the version you had.
Serious?
Yes.
It should be the same thing,
Should, but I went over it and it has the types missing and then some other stuff.
All right. I will check on that then. In fact, right now I'll do it. All right. Take care, guys.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, sir.